Now, heading back to Britain, meanwhile, the first ever protest inside Buckingham Palace has occurred over the weekend. Anti-monarchists rallied inside the palace. Now, how on earth did they pull that off?
Well, again, I mean, quite the political stunt. You're looking at the picture, "Not my king" has been a phrase that has been used over the last couple of years. I think that there was this sort of gathering of the Republic movement. Republic, of course, is the organisation based in the UK, has got affiliates across the world that are sort of moving towards the opening up the discussion around doing away with the monarchy. And there is more of a discussion not only happening in both of our countries, but across the Commonwealth and the realms as well. And so they got into the palace as part of an official tour. Quick photo opportunity, whipped off their tops, and there you'll see it, the picture there. Now, again, a political stunt that is being talked about. But we are living in different times. I think that Charles's coronation, we saw things that we wouldn't have necessarily seen during the late Queen's reign. Certainly a more dissenting voice, opportunities being taken by protesters that we haven't seen for many a year. And this is part of a conversation that Charles has to take on head on, I think. It's no point trying to sweep it under the carpet, no point thinking that this isn't happening both at home and abroad. And with stunts like this, with more activism, comes greater responsibility. And I think that that's definitely something the monarchy really needs to be aware of in the current age.
And this brings me to an article written by Jan Muir in the Daily Mail. Although it's unlikely that Britain would ever become a republic, without the Queen, some are wondering what is the point of the royal family. Do you take her view, or do you think she's missing something?
Well, I'm not sure. You know, you say that it's unlikely that Britain will become a republic, but you know, we could see that happening one day. Certainly not necessarily in my lifetime, perhaps, but there needs to be more of an open conversation, I think. The royal family are aware of this. I know from conversations happening with royal aides in the palace that it is something that they are in tune with. And certainly the reverence that had been afforded to the late Queen throughout her 70 years on the throne isn't necessarily guaranteed these days. There's certainly, of course, greater conversations to be had, as I said, both at home and abroad. And King Charles and the rest of the family need to be aware of that. Now, is this something that I think personally, I mean, I've just been on this royal tour of France. I think hopefully there's going to be a lot more international travel over the next 12 months that we hadn't seen in the previous transitional year at Buckingham Palace, had put it. And that is important for the brand of the royal family. It's important to make sure those international connections are well heeled. Now, it's something that the conversations are not just happening within the palace mechanism, but of course with the royal family themselves. So it's a very different era, this Carolean age. Charles knows that he needs to sort of step up and have deeper conversations with his subjects, as it were, about the issues surrounding the monarchy and what some people's issues with the monarchy are.
Now, heading back probably a little bit into the past, this week, Princess Anne's former husband, Captain Mark Phillips, he turned 75. As always, the media never misses an opportunity to rake over some old scandals and stories, including a child out of marriage and a kidnapping attempt. Will he ever survive these things? And it always makes for a good yarn, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I mean, you're looking back on it, we've had some big royal birthdays over the past few years, and certainly Captain Mark Phillips becoming 75. I mean, it takes us back through the history books. Certainly there was scandal and infighting. We've had plenty over the last couple of years, but that really was a period throughout the royal landscape which was tarnished with scandal and heartache. I mean, the Queen spoke about her annus horribilis herself, where her children were separating and divorcing in great measure, and where the scandal of Captain Mark Phillips having a child out of wedlock, a lady called Felicity Wade, who then had to produce a DNA test in order to get Captain Mark Phillips to own up to being her father. It really sort of set in motion from the 80s into the 90s a period of real destruction within the royal family. But coming at the back of that, Princess Anne and Mark Phillips had really repaired their relationship, and not only, I think, because of their two children, but for their own relationship as well. And unfortunately, that it is one that they do get on, will manage to co-parent their children successfully. But as you say, a trip down memory lane is always a nice thing for us on the media landscape. And I'm sure people have enjoyed reading it this week as well.
Now, on to Meghan and Harry. They've been out and about in Hollywood at a charity event for first responders hosted by Kevin Costner, where apparently they caught up with their good friend Oprah. Can you give us a rundown?
Well, I mean, it was literally a who's who of big Hollywood bigwigs. It was from the 805 Live event that Kevin Costner has hosted at his $21 million Santa Barbara mansion. And again, you look at who was there. Oprah Winfrey was there, which obviously people were straight zoning into the pictures of them and of Harry and Meghan with Oprah Winfrey, because just over 2 years ago now, we had that huge interview that really set alight the royal landscape and just destroyed the royal foundations in terms of their relationship with the rest of the royal family, and made the late Queen's last years with her family pretty fraught indeed. But is this a new opportunity for Harry and Meghan? Of course, they're now living in California. What is next for them? We haven't seen too much of Meghan in recent months. We have seen quite a lot of Harry, of course, back for the coronation, riding solo, and then back just a few weeks ago, tying in with the late Queen's passing. But what is on the horizon for these two? We've seen that they need to make an awful lot of money to keep their newfound Californian lifestyle afloat. Are they going to be mixing with some new production executives? Were they rubbing shoulders with the Hollywood bigwigs, trying to get their new latest projects off the ground? Who knows? Maybe they were just there for the charity do. But when Meghan and Harry are involved, there's normally some things cooking, aren't there? So I'm waiting and watching to see what they come out with next.
And we know that Meghan has been involved in a trademark tussle over the last year or so in relation to her Archetypes trademark application. We understand that application has been withdrawn. Her failed podcast has been dropped. What is actually next for her?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, as I said, we haven't really seen too much of her in recent months. She's been letting Harry take centre stage. And of course, we had his book at the beginning of the year, which set alight and torched relations, really. I mean, nobody was spared, excuse the pun, from his memoir. It was pretty brutal for all the members of the royal family. And certainly he's still picking up the pieces of that relationship. I don't think he's going to be speaking to the king anytime soon. I saw some reports this week that the king had pretty much extended another olive branch on top of an olive branch that he'd given him last time, coming to Balmoral and spending time with the family. Harry had said that wasn't possible, and my understanding is they haven't spoken properly for many months. And what is next for Meghan? I mean, she has sort of moved into the background. We did see them at the Invictus Games in Dusseldorf. Huge success once again for Prince Harry that we've been all together behind over the past few years. But as I said, they've created this lifestyle where they need to earn an awful lot of money to keep up appearances. They're living in the Montecito, the not only the millionaires, but the billionaires playground in California. So she must be planning what her next stage is. Is it going to be a lifestyle blog? Is it going to be sort of a wellness book, a new podcast? I mean, the last one didn't work out too well, so maybe they've got to try and sort of sit back, regroup, and work out what their next stages are. But whatever it is, people are going to be talking about it, that's for sure.
Absolutely, they will be. Russell Myers, as always, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Good to see you, mate.